Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre, and in this video, we're gonna be answering some of your questions I asked on the YouTube community page as well as on Instagram. What are some questions you have for me? And today we're gonna be going through some of those. First question asked, thoughts on the white Speedmaster? So just to date the time of recording this video, I am in the third week of March when I'm recording this, so I have not actually seen this watch in person just yet. We saw Daniel Craig wearing something at Planet Omega last year, so there were rumblings of this was potentially coming, but I did not hear much about this at all until we saw the teasing that Omega did. What do I think of it? I think it looks phenomenal. I think it looks amazing. The Speedmaster DNA with a white dial, when you have good design, it doesn't necessarily matter what the color is. It just works. Still getting the versatile case, wears amazing on the wrist. I think it is one of the most universally wearable cases out there in the market, despite what maybe some people see with that 42 number there and be like, oh boy, I don't know if I can go near this. It's a watch that, trust me, you most likely can wear on your wrist. It wears phenomenally. The raised markers on the dial are a nice touch, added contrast, the black with the white. I mean, it looks beautiful. I also like how the tachometer on the outside, black with the white dial, it just creates this beautiful look with this configuration. This watch is going to be an immediate hit, and automatically, I think at this point, is probably one of the most talked about and sought after luxury watch releases of the year, at least at this point of releasing this video, and probably will still be the case for whatever we see for the rest of 2024. It's a killer watch. I also like how they're not asking for a crazy premium for this watch. It is a moon watch after all, 3861 on the inside, and a case that we're very familiar with. I still have to see this thing in person, but by all accounts, I absolutely love it. I probably could see one of these making its way into my collection at one point. So if you're watching this video, you probably have a passion for watches. Do you have an interest in taking that passion and making it a career? If so, check out the career page down below. We have several different job listings as well as some other additional roles that we're always looking for. So if you are interested in things like fulfillment, customer service, content, writing, video editing, producing, working in a boutique and watch sales and working with customers, we'll have a full link in the description down below where you can submit any of your resume, or if you have interest in one of these roles, we can keep you in mind for any future opportunity. There are remote roles as well as in-person roles, so check that out in the description down below if you are interested. Next question is, if you had $1,500 to buy a watch, which one would you buy? So you're asking somebody that deals with a lot of different watches every single day. It's hard for me to narrow down anything to one watch. So I will just go through my thought process of what really stands out. And it kind of just depends on what you're going for. I'll also say what I've spent money on for $1,500, and that probably goes to show that, hey, I put my money where my mouth is, and that's what I would say. Longines and Tudor and Oris, a lot of their watches are going to sit above. Then you have brands like a Hamilton and a Tissot, a Seiko, typically falling below. So you really almost have to look at brands that maybe aren't the first to come to mind, maybe a little bit more niche picks. It's weird, $1,500, there's a lot that settles closer to $1,000, $2,000, but $1,500, you have some different choices to pick from. What I have done in the past and what I've spent my money on, you have Sinn 556, Nomos Club series as well. I think these are, with German brands, some of the best points of value in this price range. I love my 556. The Nomos Club also, I mean, talk about an incredible value. You're getting a movement on the inside that is produced by Nomos in the region of Glashütte. This brand produces 95% of their components within this small little region. You could argue that outside of a Seiko, it's one of the most vertically integrated watches that you can get for the money anywhere. Those are two brands that spring to mind and two models that spring to mind immediately when thinking about $1,500. Then you have something like Seiko with some of their luxe products, like an SPB 143. It's actually coming slightly under, but it's an amazing point of value. And then you have a bunch of brands that have some cool complication types, or brands that I would say are more sleeper picks, niche picks, looking at brands like an Alpina, Marathon, Stova, a Ball, also like Mito for some of their GMT models and dive watches, some great value there as well. So those would be probably some of the places I would look. Where if I spent my money mostly, a lot of the German brands, and I think those are just incredible points of value within this $1,000 to $2,000 range, with also, if you can extend your budget, some great things as you get closer to $2,000, and if you don't have that budget, under $1,000. But we've talked about that many times on the channel before. So next up, we have a question about quartz movements. The best quartz movements in the market today, question mark. It seems like Japan is the only place high-end quartz is being focused on. So when we talk about high-end quartz, I'm assuming you mean just by price, but I think you can look at quartz in a variety of ways. There's the feature set, and there's also where it's positioned. And typically those things are intersecting and are interlinked. Japan, yes. You look at where did the most innovation happen when it comes to quartz technology. Japan is going to be mostly responsible for that, for the work they did in the 1960s. And that's why you see brands like a Seiko and mostly a Grand Seiko now, I'd say, really leading the way in this technology and being one of the first ones that come to mind, as well as Citizen. You look at the 9F series of calibers from Grand Seiko, I would say they really help set a standard for both how a quartz movement can look, how it performs. Citizen, you could argue, some of the most impressive feats when it comes to quartz technology being achieved in the entire industry. The caliber 0-100, that movement is the most accurate movement in the world from a quartz technology standpoint. Then you also have the A060. Insane accuracy, or plus or minus 5 seconds a year, I believe, on those. Nuts. You'll see those in some of their Chronomaster line. And although Japan has a ton of value in amazing quartz watches, you also have plenty from Switzerland to go along with it. Breitling with their Endurance Pro models are fantastic. You have plus or minus 10 seconds a year in accuracy there, being a thermocompensated quartz crystal on the inside. The Elegant from FP Journe, yes, you're getting an high horology brand that has a quartz watch and also some pretty nifty features in the process. You're talking about 8 to 10 years of battery life and a sleeping feature. After 30 minutes, the thing will go to rest. And also is smart enough, when you pick this watch back up, it will go the least distance traveled to show the correct time. So really cool stuff there. Longines, they've discontinued their VHP models, but those Conquest VHPs were very impressive from a timekeeping standpoint. I'll just throw them in as an honorable mention because if you look back to some of the early production of high accuracy in the mid-20th century, Longines has as established of a history and pedigree as any in the entire industry. And then if we're just talking about under $1,000, there's still some pretty cool stuff out there. One from Switzerland even. You can look at Marathon and what they're doing using the ETA caliber. This is the F06.412. This is in the stainless steel navigator. That's plus or minus 10 seconds a year in accuracy and under $1,000. And one other brand, they're going back to Japan, but I do think this is also an incredible point to mention considering what you're getting for the money. Bulova, what they're doing with their precisionist movements as well as just some of their high frequency quartz movements, great stuff. I mean, you are talking about accuracy in that range as some of these higher end brands, but also getting at this high frequency rate, which allows you to have some additional upside. In the Lunar Pilot's case, you're getting some cool sweep of that second hand. You also have that with the Jetstar, and then also with timing elements too. So you're dealing with fractions of a second for that chronograph you can also time things with, which I think is pretty cool and a nice feature for a quartz watch, especially at those price ranges. Next question asks, Omega coaxial versus Grand Seiko's dual escapement, so dual impulse escapement. So this is a watch, I mean, I'm wearing a 9S A5 powered watch right now on my wrist. So I spent a lot of time learning about both of these movements. I am not a watchmaker, so first let's just unpack what you're even asking. Which one's better? Which I don't think you can really look at that because there are two movements that were developed with different approaches and what they were trying to accomplish. Now you are correct to be lumping these two together because there are similarities. One is you look at industrialized escapements in the past 100 years, what are the ones that you can look at? I mean, these are two of in very rare air. Like this does not happen. And I think people need to recognize that. We hear about it a lot for the coaxial, but also for the dual impulse escapement. Like what the 9SA5 meant for Grand Seiko in the development of this cannot be understated. You're also correct to put these two together because with the swing back and forth of the balance, you're going to get one direct as well as one indirect impulse. But they are different, and where I would draw some of these distinctions are going to be, one, the escapement wheel is going to have a different design. You're also dealing with a pallet fork system and the pallets and how they're positioned going to be slightly different. But ultimately, the key difference is going to come down to what is the intended purpose of developing the escapement in itself. For the coaxial, it's all about elongating the service interval, dealing with lower lubricant and not having the same needs in that regard, eliminating sliding friction as a byproduct of having this desire. But then on the flip side, you look at the 9SA5, when visiting Shizukuishi and understanding more about the 9SA5, a word you hear over and over and over again is efficiency. And that is the key premise of that escapement system and just how everything within that escapement is going to be designed. You look at the escapement wheel, you look at the pallet fork, how is it going to be designed? Hollowed out, all about weight, ultra efficient, stable energy. So it's just going at it a different lane. The coaxial, looking at more of that long-term service interval, and then on the flip side, how can you get an 80-hour power reserve in a 5 hertz movement? That's where the dual impulse is going to change. There are similarities, but there's also differences, and really what the main difference is going to be the premise behind why it was created in the first place. So since this is the first Q&A since we've opened our brick and mortar location, there was a few questions that I thought were pretty interesting asking about that, but also just like authorized dealers and how to act in a store environment that I never really had the ability to talk about from this perspective before. But now with the store being open, I thought I maybe could answer it in this video. First question is, how is the new shop going? Any unexpected hiccups and challenges of a brick and mortar store? It's something different, and when you're dealing with something different, yes, there are going to be different challenges you have to take on. We're still doing our e-commerce presence, so to add on top of it a store environment, there's some cool things to navigate and figure out. I just have to say though, it's been amazing to go into this new part of our business life cycle and actually have a place where I can meet people. I was overwhelmed by the amount of feedback, people that reached out to me after the posting of the video. This is unbelievable. I am living my dream, and that is so cool. So I just want to thank all of you again. I know I say this all the time, but I'm gonna always thank whenever I can, and I do appreciate all the support to this point. It all means a lot to me that I'm able to do something like this. But it is interesting though too, because when you have an e-commerce site, you look at visitors to a site, it's a number. It's still incredible to have visitors, but the amount of effort that you have to put in per visitor compared to an in-store environment is much different. So it's gonna be mostly that element that's the thing that we're continuing to navigate and figure out. When you come into a store, you want to have a great experience, and that's what we want to put forth with each person that comes in the door. So thinking about the staffing needs and how you're able to create that, we've had great turnout every single weekend, every single week, and having to manage that, having typically 4 people in a store might be good, but on certain weekends, we found that it's not enough. So you wanna make sure everybody feels welcome, and you're also there to create this luxury environment and special environment where it's an extension of what we've been doing for years. So that's probably been the biggest challenge and cool thing to navigate, because you get to see people for the first time, and having that relationship in person means a lot to me. So I want that to be special. And then also just inventory location and just adding a different dynamic of where inventory is sitting, transferring product from our warehouse to a store environment. There's a lot of things that go involved with that, and you're moving a lot of units and things on a day-to-day basis, which it's a lot to oversee, but it's all good and exciting things. So far so good. It's been absolutely unbelievable and a lot of fun in the process. So this comment had 106 thumbs up at the time of me taking a screenshot. So as a first-time high-end watch buyer, it could be a bit intimidating to walk into a boutique/AD. Do you have suggestions on what to do or to not do so you actually try on a variety of watches and make an informed decision without feeling rushed into making a decision or seemingly wasting the rep's time? I think that the fact that you're asking this question goes to show that you have nothing to be intimidated about. You seem like a respectful person just to even think about other people that, quite frankly, it's the authorized dealer's job to make that person feel welcome. The only thing that I would say is if you can call ahead, that could be very helpful to make sure that you have a good experience, but also that they, on the other side, if you are an authorized dealer, can present an experience that is best for you. If you want to see a lot of different watches and you want to try some different things on, let them know beforehand, especially if you're a serious buyer and you want to make a decision. This is where you can start to get more of this direct one-on-one in a relationship, where I think that's the most valuable thing to establish. So if you do have this intention and you want to do this, it's a serious decision you're about to make if you're going to buy a nice watch. So you should maybe take another step just to ensure that you are going to get the best environment for making that decision, because you don't know what the walkthrough traffic is. You don't know what the availability is going to be. Most authorized dealers want to make sure that everybody that comes in the door is going to have a good time. I can't speak for everybody, but at least that's our idea and what we want to bring forth with every single person that comes into the store. And then one other final question I thought was interesting too: is it inappropriate to try on watches at a boutique you won't ever afford? Short answer is absolutely not. You can try on watches that you can't afford, but this is where communication comes in, and just don't be unreasonable, right? I know what happens, and my goal with everything, when I'm coming to camera, I'm showing somebody a watch for the first time. I want to instill this idea of wonder that I feel when I put on a watch that I really love in somebody else, because I also know that a buying cycle for a watch and the aspiration that comes with one day hoping to own something does not happen unless you're able to plant that seed in a way that makes sense and is in a way where they can truly experience it. If you can't make it a actual idea where they can visualize actually owning something, then even if you can't afford it today, how would you ever make that a priority in your life if you've never experienced that watch, or at least really looked into it further? So I think that's absolutely fine. The only thing I throw out there is maybe express like, hey, like I'm not looking at this right now, but I'd be really interested to try that watch on. And also maybe just don't go crazy and be like, hey, I'd like to try that on, I'd like to try that on, I'd like to try that on. Because on the other side, there is a liability both from a security standpoint and just pulling a watch out of a case and letting you try it on. There's a risk of the scratch, there's a risk of a lot of different things that can happen. Most are going to be accommodating. I would absolutely love to be accommodating, but just kind of keep that in mind as well. But I know how this process works. One day you're buying an affordable watch, who knows where that takes you. Next question asks, what music do you listen to? So I am all over the map. I come from a very musical family. I believe my first concert that I went to was a lot of progressive rock bands that my dad was very into. I remember sitting in like the back seat, like listening to like Jeff Beck and like King Crimson. One of the first concerts I can remember as a child was going to see Paul McCartney. And I realize now looking back at how surreal of an experience that was. But music was always something that was very important to my family and a part of my upbringing and something that I still love and spend a lot of time with. My music listening is basically broken down in 3 different areas. One is what I listen to when I'm by myself, when I'm working, what I listen to by myself when I am, say, driving or just moving around and on the go, or I'm working out, which is a totally different thing. And then there's music that I listen to with my wife. Those are 3 different things. If you look at that pillar of what I do when I'm listening at work or while I'm working, it has to be something without lyrics. So typically I'm listening to either classical music, typically Chopin or Brahms, or I'll be listening to like 90s hip hop instrumentals from like Jay Dilla or Pete Rock, something of that sort, just so I can not get distracted so easily, because I am very easily distracted. So music with lyrics, can't do it. What I listen to the most probably is going to be usually things like metal, metalcore, usually heavier music. I also love pop punk, fan of jazz as well, hip hop, pop music too. I mean, I'm all over the map. In the past year, I've also probably listened to more country and bluegrass than I ever have in my entire life. So I have a lot of different lanes and things that I will listen to. Classic rock was also a huge thing with my dad growing up. So I am, brands like a Led Zeppelin and bands from the 70s, the 60s, like that stuff I am, very into. When I'm listening to my wife, it's usually oldies like an Elvis or a Frank Sinatra. I mean, she has very good taste in music. And then, a lot of, modern pop and things of that sort. But, she's an old soul like myself in many ways. So I am all over the map in terms of what I listen to. So probably if you came up to me and started talking music, I'd be able to talk to you pretty much about anything for the most part. It was a big part of me growing up. So this next question, I saw this and I'm like, all right, who hurt this person? We need to talk about this. Let's get it all out there and let's discuss what happened. When do you say enough is enough in the watch collection journey? First, I'm just looking at this as somebody, and I don't know what your situation is. I don't know why you asked that. I mean, to me, when is enough is enough? It's all coming down to this idea, again, marathon, not a sprint, and then buying for yourself. People, I find, and I've done this with myself too, you almost find identity and value in the things that you're able to consume and also acquire. So you can never let that be the case where you're attaching your identity to the things that you're getting or any satisfaction beyond just enjoyment of that good in the life that you live. If you're letting that be the highlight of your life, the watch that you decide to buy, and this is coming from a guy who has made his living selling watches and talking about watches on the internet. So I am trying to be as objective as possible when I say this. You have to be content with your life, and you have to make your watches be a pursuit of a life well lived and not be the pursuit itself, if you know what I mean. It's a great way to mark an occasion. It's a great way to set a milestone. It's a beautiful world to collect watches. They're amazing little objects, but that's what they are. They're objects, but they don't complete you. So you have to see it separated from that. And also just take a step back and enjoy what you have. Sometimes you always have to be in the hunt. I've expressed this many times on the channel, but I need to sometimes even with myself too, and that's not even with watches, but just taking a moment to have gratitude for what you have. I know this is a cliche thing to say, I don't want to get into this, but that's the truth. You do have to just take a deep breath and think about where you come from, what do you have in your collection now, and disregard the opinions of others when you are having these points of reflection. Let this be an internal exercise more than anything else, because that's what watch collecting should be. Yes, there is a brotherhood and sisterhood that comes along with it, but your collecting journey should be about your journey, not anybody else's. Next question asks, which top 3 watches would you shortlist at $5K for women? So if I had to think about the big 3 of women's watches in this price range, I would say the most versatility and most options available to you is going to be Cartier. I think Cartier dominates in this price segment. mostly quartz options at this price point, but you're getting a ton of like icons, I would say. Like the Balmain Blue, amazing choice. The Tanks, the Panther Descartiers, the Santos. There's just so much to choose from. I think they have the most diversity, but then you also have brands like Rolex, where you have the Oyster Perpetual in the smaller sizes. It's slightly over 5,000, I believe. So those are gonna be kind of stretching your budget. Omega with their Constellations, I would say, is another just pillar around this price point that I would strongly consider. I love the look of these. And then you also have their DeVille collection to take a look at as well. Then other great brands too, Breitling. I think the ladies Chronomat models are really sharp and look great. The bullet bracelet is so amazing on the wrist. It's so cool. It creates this different dynamic than what you're typically used to when seeing the draping of a traditional bracelet. Love the way it looks. And then also like the 36mm Super Oceans. Underneath as well, you have brands like Longines. I think they're another brand that if you're talking about $2,000 to $4,000, a lot to get lost in with their mini Dolce Vitas, the Prima Luna. My wife has some of these. She loves them. And then another brand that I mentioned, which I also just gifted one of these watches to my wife, was a Grand Seiko. It was a mini Grand Seiko. I think this watch is so cool. It's the STGF 359. This is a baby snowflake, so it's very small case. Still getting a high performance course movement on the inside, which for her, she's not as much into watches, so not having to reset the thing all the time is very helpful for her, so she really likes this one. And beautiful snowflake dial on the front. They also did just come out with a 37mm quartz snowflake version, so that's the SBGX 355, nice mid-size version. But if you want something a little bit smaller, you can go for that baby snowflake with that STGF. My wife loves it. I haven't done a women's watches video in a while. I've done many in the past, but probably should revisit that for 2024 at some point. If you guys want to see that, I can absolutely do it. But all right, guys, that is all we have for this video and this Q&A. If you enjoyed it and you like these style of videos, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Thumbs up on this is a great indication that you want to see more of these in the future. I like these because it allows me to just go to camera, just address a lot of different questions that typically maybe I can't address in a single video, and gets me out of my traditional format to maybe even show a little bit more of a personal side of me. Also check out TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.